The old house stood on a hill, shrouded in mist and shadow. Its once grand facade now crumbled, a ghost of its former self, whispering tales of forgotten times. Eleanor, escaping a past she couldn't outrun, hoped for peace within its creaking walls. She had left behind a life of chaos, seeking solace in the isolation of this ancient structure. The air inside was heavy, thick with the scent of decay and forgotten things. Dust motes danced in the dim light, settling on furniture that had not been touched in decades. As night fell for the first time, a chill ran down Eleanor's spine, a premonition of the horror that awaited. The darkness seemed to breathe, alive with unseen eyes watching her every move. The floorboards groaned beneath her feet, each step echoing through the empty halls like a mournful cry. It was as if the house itself was warning her, urging her to leave. She unpacked boxes, each one a futile attempt to fill the emptiness that had taken root in her soul. Memories of her past life clung to her, refusing to be left behind. Sleep came fitfully, punctuated by the rustling of leaves against her window pane, sounding like whispered threats. The wind outside seemed to carry voices, murmuring secrets she couldn't quite understand. Each gust of wind seemed to whisper her name, Eleanor, Eleanor. The house, with its ancient walls and hidden past, had claimed her, and she could feel its grip tightening with every passing moment. The second night, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. They were no longer just faint murmurs, but had taken on a more menacing tone, almost as if they were trying to communicate something urgent, something dreadful. They seemed to come from the walls themselves, from the very foundation of the house. The whispers echoed through the creaking walls, reverberating up from the basement and seeping down from the attic, filling every corner with their eerie presence. Eleanor tossed and turned, her dreams plagued by shadowy figures with eyes that glowed like hot coals. These figures seemed to reach out to her, their hands like shadows, their eyes burning with an intensity that pierced through her very soul. When she woke, heart pounding, a cold sweat clung to her skin. She could still feel the weight of their gaze, the lingering touch of their shadowy hands. The room felt colder, as if the very air had been drained of warmth. The old grandfather clock at the end of the hall chimed midnight, each toll resonating deep within her bones. The sound was almost deafening in the silence of the night, each chime a reminder of the relentless passage of time. There was a presence in the house now, watching her, toying with her. It was as if the very walls had eyes, and they were all fixed on her, observing her every move, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Eleanor tried to convince herself it was just the wind, the settling of an old house. She whispered reassurances to herself, trying to drown out the whispers that seemed to grow louder with each passing moment. But deep down, she knew it was something far more sinister. The whispers were not just sounds, they were a warning, a prelude to something much darker, something that was slowly but surely closing in on her. On the third night, the shadows began to move. They danced on the walls of her bedroom, twisting, contorting into grotesque shapes that seemed to mock her fear. The whispers intensified, morphing into guttural growls that sent shivers down her spine. Sleep was no longer an option. Eleanor huddled in her bed, pulling the covers tight, as if they could protect her from the unseen horror that stalked her. A cold spot settled in the room, the air growing thick and oppressive. She felt a presence drawing closer, something evil, hungry, and filled with an insatiable rage. The fourth night it appeared, a hulking silhouette framed in the doorway, its eyes burning like embers in the darkness. Eleanor gasped, her breath catching in her throat as the creature took a step into the room. It was vaguely humanoid but grotesquely deformed, its flesh decaying, its limbs unnaturally long and twisted. The stench of rot and decay filled the air, suffocating her. Eleanor wanted to scream, to run, but terror froze her in place. The creature moved closer, its claws scraping across the wooden floor, the sound like nails on a chalkboard. Panic surged through Eleanor. She scrambled back on the bed, pressing herself against the wall, her eyes never leaving the visitor. It tilted its head, as if studying her, its lipless mouth stretched into a grotesque grin, revealing rows of jagged, blood-stained teeth. Then, with a speed that belied its size, it lunged. Eleanor screamed as the creature's claws tore through the bed covers, narrowly missing her. She thrashed and kicked, her heart pounding against her ribs, but the creature was relentless. Just as suddenly as it had attacked, the creature stopped. It retreated a step, its burning eyes still fixed on Eleanor. In its clawed hand, it held a small, ornate box, its surface cold and smooth against her skin. The creature dropped the box on the bed, a thud that echoed through the room. Then, as quickly as it had come, it vanished. Eleanor was left trembling, bathed in the cold moonlight streaming through the window, the box a chilling reminder of the horror she had just witnessed. She cautiously reached for it, her fingers shaking uncontrollably. Inside, nestled on a bed of black velvet, lay a single, gleaming silver key. Its touch sent a jolt of icy fear through her, yet she couldn't shake the feeling that it held some terrible significance. Eleanor was trapped, not just in the house, but in a nightmare from which there seemed to be no escape. Days turned into nights, each one a terrifying ordeal. The visitor returned, always at the stroke of midnight, its presence growing stronger, more menacing with each passing hour. Eleanor felt her sanity slipping, her grip on reality loosening, her only solace the small silver key clutched tightly in her hand. One night, as the creature advanced on her, its claws outstretched, Eleanor held up the key. "What do you want from me?" she cried, her voice hoarse with terror. The creature stopped, its burning eyes fixed on the key. For the first time, Eleanor sensed a flicker of something else in its gaze. A deep, guttural voice resonated in her head. The key, it unlocks the door to your escape, but also to your destiny. A choice, terrifying in its implications, presented itself to Eleanor. Escape the nightmare, but at what cost? Driven to desperation, fueled by a glimmer of hope and an overwhelming terror, Eleanor made her choice. She would use the key, but she wouldn't use it to escape. She would use it to bind the creature, to trap it back in the darkness from whence it came. The creature lunged, its claws tearing through the air. Eleanor acted quickly, jamming the key into the creature's chest, where a heart should have been. A blinding light erupted, filling the room with a high-pitched shriek that seemed to shatter the very foundation of the house. Silence descended. The creature was gone, vanished without a trace. Eleanor collapsed to the floor, her body racked with sobs, a mixture of relief and horror coursing through her veins. She had survived, but a part of her knew that the nightmare was far from over. The house felt different now, colder, emptier, and as the grandfather clock at the end of the hall chimed midnight, Eleanor felt a chill run down her spine, a premonition of a new horror that was taking root within her soul. The next morning, a thick fog rolled in, blanketing the old house on the hill. The mist was so dense that it seemed to swallow the house whole, creating an eerie silence that hung in the air. The world felt suspended in time, as if the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. When the sun finally broke through, casting long, eerie shadows across the overgrown lawn, a figure emerged from the front door. The light pierced through the fog, revealing the dilapidated state of the house and the wild, untamed garden that surrounded it. The figure moved slowly, almost hesitantly, as if stepping into a world that was both familiar and foreign. It was Eleanor, but something was different, something unsettling in her eyes, a darkness that had not been there before. Her gaze was intense, almost piercing, as if she could see into the very soul of anyone who dared to look back. The once warm and kind eyes were now cold and distant, filled with a haunting emptiness. She clutched a small, ornate box in her hand, her touch lingering on its cold, smooth surface. The box was intricately designed, with delicate patterns etched into the metal, and it seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Eleanor's fingers traced the designs as if trying to unlock the secrets hidden within. Inside, nestled on a bed of black velvet, lay a single, gleaming silver key. The key was simple yet elegant, its surface polished to a mirror-like finish. It seemed to glow with an otherworldly light, casting a faint, eerie glow on the velvet lining. The key was more than just a piece of metal. It was a symbol, a promise of what was to come. Her lips curved into a chilling smile, a mirror image of the creature she had faced. She understood now. The smile was not one of joy or relief, but of acceptance. Eleanor had come to terms with her fate, and in that moment, she embraced it fully. The transformation was complete, and she was ready to take on her new role. The key was not just a key to a door, but a key to a legacy. a legacy that had been passed down through generations, each new bearer adding their own chapter to the story. The key represented power, responsibility, and a connection to a dark past that could not be escaped. A legacy of terror that would continue, passed down from one victim to the next, in an endless cycle of horror. Each new bearer of the key would face their own trials and tribulations, adding to the ever-growing tapestry of fear and despair. The cycle was unbreakable, a never-ending loop that bound each victim to the house and its dark history. The midnight visitor was gone, but Eleanor, forever bound to the house and the key, was ready to take its place. The cycle continues. She stood there, the weight of her new role settling on her shoulders, knowing that she was now a part of something much larger than herself. The house, the key, and the legacy were now hers to guard, and the cycle of horror would continue as it always had and always would.